Welcome to the Bloom House Podcast with Maris Gant and Andrea Oliver. Maris started a wedding planning business and grew as an entrepreneur. Andrea went the corporate event path. 10 years later, they're still learning from each other and comparing notes. From kids' playdates to ballrooms to boardrooms, they're still best friends, and they're sharing what they know, one episode at a time. Hello again. I'm Maris Gant.
And I'm Andrea Oliver. Today, we're going to revisit the topic of client experience. The last time we had this conversation, we focused on building trust, focusing on communication and clarity with the client. And this time, we're going to talk about expectations and the whole journey from beginning to end through the process.
Sounds exciting.
Right?
I'm thrilled.
I mean, we could talk about this forever, so of course we're thrilled. So to get started, we're going to start where everything starts with onboarding.
Onboarding. Where are we starting with onboarding?
With when you get someone started and you want to frame out what to expect.
Okay.
And there's a planning process and they need to know what's coming at them.
Well, I think that everyone learns differently. Everyone processes information differently. So you have to lay it out in a few different ways. Right? Different learning styles.
Oh my gosh. When I come to the end of an event, the most common thing that I think to myself when anything happened that didn't happen the way I wanted it to is, should I have communicated that piece differently?
Yes. And we come away with that a whole lot as well. I mean, yeah, sometimes we do a whole wedding and the client, like, they didn't read the timeline. I'm like, what? You didn't read the timeline. But so, if we're talking about the beginning, I think it's important, like we map out everything like next steps, here's what your planning process looks like in an email. And then we talk through it as well. It's on the proposal. It's in the contract. But, I'm sitting here going, do we need to do a video too? Like, is anybody going to watch it? We use Aisle Planner specifically for all of our planning clients. And it's a really big system. And we say to people, I say all the time, like, you're either going to love this, you're going to be in here all the time, or it's okay if you don't love it. I'm going to be in here all the time. Like, we don't have to communicate through the app. But I know a lot of planners, this is definitely a question that lots of people have is like, how do we get them used to it? It's a big system. And what I've come to is I just talk them through it.
The software itself.
And now that we're in a Zoom world, I screen share a lot. I don't know. Now, some people, I feel like it does make them crazy. I try to limit the amount of screen sharing I'm doing because sometimes it can get overwhelming.
Again, like you said, with the
different styles.
I think we're coming back to something we talked about the last time we hit this conversation was it's about getting to know these clients and meeting them where they are. It's such a huge part of the process.
Right. Some people don't want any part of the tech element. And I know, tech in general is a thing that can be overwhelming to some and isn't to others.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, what helps you absorb this? And are you even interested in it at all? And if not, that's fine too.
Or did you hire someone else just so you wouldn't have to think about it?
That's the thing.
Yep.
Yeah. With when you're hiring someone, you're hiring them to make your life easier, not more difficult.
Right.
And this is a little bit of a segue, but I feel like I can tell when somebody is getting frustrated with whatever tech it is, whether it's they're having trouble uploading their guest lists into Aisle Planner, or they're in their band's portal and it's glitchy, or, it's just out of their realm and it's difficult. And so if I can tell that they're getting frustrated with tech, for me, it's a phone call.
Okay.
Or it's scheduling a quick Zoom. Or if it's simple, I'll send them a quick Loom video, which I don't know if everybody knows what a Loom video is. Can you describe it? I'm bad at describing tech.
Well, it's a simple way to insert a video into an email document.
Yeah, and they just look at it and they're like, oh, you click here, click here. But I definitely, if I can tell somebody's getting frustrated, I rarely cold call my clients. It's always scheduled calls, scheduled everything. But I'll just pick up the phone and say let me help you. How can I help you? Is it that you have to send me your spreadsheet, or can we do it together?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the tech overwhelm, it's real. And I'm not overly techie. everything I've learned, I've really had to focus on to learn. So like, I get it. There's nothing worse than feeling dumb because you're in a program that you don't understand and maybe it doesn't feel that complicated, but it feels that way to you.
Okay. Absolutely. And it's that I think with any software you're using, it's it's the repetition. Like when you use it every day, the thing you're reaching for, you learn to find where it is because you need to reach for it and pick it up. You need that tool. And if you're someone else who's coming in there once in a while, you're like, do these tools exist?
Mm-hmm.
You don't even know if they're there. You don't know if you should reach for them or not. So like, I feel like with the softwares I've used most, I get to a point where I'm like, I want this tool. Why wouldn't it be here? And then you reach for it and then you find it and you get familiar with where it is. And I feel like to learn how to find the tools in a new software for your band, for your photographer, for your florist, floral designer, for your planner, that it ends up that a lot of the planning process for a client can be very technically overwhelming.
It really is. Every vendor has their own thing now that we're doing online payments. So if you're taking online payments, you're using 17 Hats or Honeybook or Dubsado and if everybody's different and the client's having to get in all of them, and not telling vendors to not use tech, we're all using it's great. But just me from where I'm sitting, I'm just trying to see, are you getting frustrated? Let me help.
Yes.
Because there's nothing worse than paying somebody for a service and then feeling like it's created more work for you. That's a horrible feeling in the moment.
What about the other thing we wanted to talk about a little bit was in that expectation setting is also being clear about boundaries. So there's this, as a planner, tendency to want to jump in and fix everything for the clients because we feel like, well, I can make this easier for you. Just let me do it. It's fine. How do you also set boundaries to make sure that that balance of that relationship stays in check?
It's funny that you just said that because we talked about it a little bit earlier and yet I jumped right in there and I'm like, oh, just send me your spreadsheet. Oh, I'll just call you. Like that was all my boundaries out the window.
Yep.
Which I feel like I have pretty good boundaries, but I also know that if there's like a little bit of frustration, I try to nip it really quick.
And I remember you losing a half day very recently. Which is something that was supposed to be a nip in the bud.
Oh, which thing? I block everything out.
And involves some furniture.
Oh.
So anyway, so let's talk about like, how do you feel about, your contract outlines certain services and sometimes you want to offer a little extra help somewhere. How do you set your boundaries so that you are maintaining that balance to where you're not giving away so much of your time, even though you would like to swoop in and help and fix everything?
The important thing just to remember is, first of all, if you give too much of yourself away, then you are no use to anyone. And everybody knows that. I feel like boundaries are a hot topic. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody has boundaries. That's wonderful. The thing with going above and beyond that sometimes happens is your clients might not even know. And then you might start to get resentful because you're doing these extra things that you're not being paid for, but it's totally your choice. And I do that plenty of times. Like I'm as guilty as anyone is.
I feel like there's also this, like I think about when we were first learning about creating packages and building out contracts, is that you negotiated the amount of work that you're going to do. And then you get there and find out that the client situation, that they have said, I only need this much help.
Right.
And at what point do you start to get resentful because they're trying to get you to do work that they originally said they specifically had covered? So there's some of that protecting the relationship with the boundary.
Absolutely. And I mean, definitely more in the early days and that's how you learn. That's how, you do so many events where you're like, well, now this is in my contract. But, communicating all of that clearly so it's not just a clause in your contract is important. And just how you do that. I mean, you've got to do it in the beginning and just be clear about it so that they're not surprised later.
Yeah. I think for you, there's always been this boundary where your phone is off. You're not on email after a certain point in the evening. It's usually 7 or 8 p.m. So that you're available to your family or sometimes your friends so that there is clear time because you're up and working by 6 a.m. most days and there isn't a lot of clarity of off-on time on the weekends. So that 7 p.m. hard stop, now I'm with my family. It's, I think most of your clients learn that pretty quick right away that that's just a clear boundary that I'm not going to respond to you in the evening. I'm not going to respond to you at 4 a.m. I'm not going to respond to you, but that there is time that is yours.
Mm-hmm. Well, and texting's a hard thing too. I know a few years ago, we used to be like, no texting. We would never text with our clients. And now it's just sort of what's happening with the younger generation. I'm fine if clients text, like, say they're in a dress shop and they have a quick question, or where's that meeting again? Like something quick. But if it's anything like pertaining to the event that needs to be referenced later, I do still try to keep it in email form. But I know that as times change, like in a few years, that's going to be gone. But a lot of times I do ignore a text and just bring it over to email in a non-passive aggressive way. Like, hey, I like to keep track of things. And, sometimes things get dropped when it is on text. So I don't have a hard stop on the texting because I feel like, you just got to change with the times. But I don't do a lot of client texting. Now, the wedding weekend,
yeah, all day, all hours, all day.
The week of the wedding, whatever, of course. But leading up to, I just like to keep it more organized. So, that's a boundary, for now.
And that's also when you've got a different client every weekend, sometimes 2 clients in a weekend. If you don't keep it all in their streams of communication, it all turns to soup. And you can't remember who had which, what, at what time.
Exactly. Oh, I know what I was going to say. I got sidetracked a little bit ago, but going back to expectations and all of that, say you're going above and beyond for your client and they know it. That's not always a good thing because that sort of sometimes can mess with the balance of the relationship. And if they feel like they're getting a lot for free, they might feel bad. They might be anxious, like, am I getting charged later for this extra hour that she gave? So there's all of that goes along. That can create anxiety in their brain if you're going above and beyond and they feel like they owe you more than they're giving you. So sometimes I feel like, I'm sure this happens with me too, like I'm as guilty as anyone. That's why I'm aware of it. But yeah, sometimes giving too much, even though you're trying to do the right thing, isn't the best thing to do.
What about, let's move towards, so you're in this, there's sort of that initial onboarding phase. Then there's the planning phase. And then you have the event, which is sort of like that last week of the process leading up to the wedding day. And then the wedding's come and gone. Do you have a process at the end of this
offboarding? I think we're still sort of working on a more broader offboarding of clients. But it is, as a planner, you develop these really intense relationships with people. And then where does it go? So we, of course, I like to send them some behind the scenes photos from their wedding day, like the morning after. Not beat the photographer to it, because normally the photographers are giving out a sneak peek within a few days, but just sort of like, it's fun for them to see. I've thought about doing that a little bit later because so many people are texting them the day after their wedding that I don't know, maybe we revisit that. But I like to just sort of text them some pictures. The day after, I will email them with, here's what happens, who took your gifts, just whatever sort of bullet points. Of course, lovely working with you. I do go ahead and throw a review link in there just in case they're feeling like going for it. And then, of course, they're usually not going to review you right after. And I'll send something later, but it's a quick, just like, here's all your things. Amazing working with you. Great. And then, from there, it's different with every client.
Some of them stop communicating. Some take you and your best friend to a New Year's concert.
Yes.
Some name their children after you.
That's so true. Oh my gosh, all these things are true. No, it's true. I think that there's different levels and it depends on the relationship and not good, bad, or any different. With some people, they have hired you to do a job. You do the job is completed. Everybody is happy. Goodbye. And some people you remain close friends with. Some people is somewhere in the middle. I would like to do a little more with offboarding as far as, we do ask for feedback just in that follow-up email. Like if there's anything you would like to share about our team or the vendors or how we can make your experience better, we'd love to hear it. And I kind of leave it at that, but I want to start doing, here's a link, would love to hop on a Zoom call after the fact, after you get back from your honeymoon or whatnot, just to sort of celebrate and talk through everything. So I'd like to push that a little more because I think that's good for everybody. but so far we're kind of minimal. Now I do leave their aisle planner portal up for 2 weeks or a month after, and then I'll email them and just say, how's it going? How's life? If you need anything off aisle planner, I can leave it up as long as you want. Oh, there's that boundary. I'm like, it's fine. But, if you don't need anything else off of it, we're going to go ahead and archive it. So there's that follow-up in a couple weeks out as well.
Mm-hmm. What's your favorite part of the process?
I was going to say not offboarding. I also just don't want to let them go sometimes. Mm-hmm. We're like, oh, no, we're still friends. Favorite part of the process. I love the adrenaline rush of that initial call and lining them up with their team and talking about what vendors would be a great fit. It's so fun. And because at that point, you can do anything. I mean, in that first call, we're really going over the budget and deciding what they can and can't do. But that's such a fun part. And then any big meetings where it's in the middle in phase 2, where we're sitting down and looking at linen samples and we're either tasting or talking about a menu. And I've got the layout in one tab and the timeline in the other. And we're just
I'm getting excited I'm like, oh my God, I love that. That's my favorite too.
I really the meat of things.
The full vendor. I think about that with that big one with Leslie that we did last year, where we watched the client in this situation go, oh my God, it's all coming together.
Yes.
You watch the client sort of melt a little bit because they see for the first time concretely that it's all hitting their vision.
True, because when they book the vendors, they're just trusting your recommendations. And then you start to sort of see what everybody can do. And it can be fun. It can also be a little overwhelming for people because that phase 2 is still a little more in the clouds than phase 3, which is when you're tying everything up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I love picking linens the best also. I'm so into linens, which is funny because I just didn't grow up that way. Just embraced it now.
Yeah, the colors and the palettes and the putting everything together.
It is really fun.
It's really fun.
Yeah. I mean, really, almost everything is really fun. Honestly, it's people's hopes and dreams.
Mm-hmm.
But talking about setting expectations, taking us all the way back to the beginning, just letting them know early on, this is how we work. This is what you can expect. For us, it's okay. We work in 3 phases. We're going to book everything. Then we're going to talk about how it all works together. And then we're going to tie it all up. Mm-hmm. Phase 1, probably going to talk a lot, if it's full service, because we're trying to get everybody booked and it's a lot of back and forth. Phase 2, more we're going to talk every month. We're going to have a monthly check-in. And then at the end, we're going to talk more again, just so they sort of know. Talking a lot, little break in the middle, talking a lot again. And of course, it looks different for wedding management, but just letting them know here is what's going to happen.
Yeah, because then when there's that break in the middle, they're not going, boy, hope everything's still going.
Sure.
And to know that there is that break in the middle, that they can sort of rest on their laurels a little bit, the work is
There is a break.
There is a break, yeah.
I mean, in a 12 or 18-month long engagement, there are breaks. And that's why we've sort of built it out to where there are breaks in the middle and we tell them that.
Mm-hmm.
But if I can tell they're getting a little nervous about what should I be doing right now?
Nothing.
Then no. See, boundaries again. No, we'll hop on a call and we'll go down the checklist together and we'll say okay, have you started working on your ceremony script? Are you going to write vows for each other? Does the groom know what he's wearing? That kind of stuff. It's usually that phase where they're I feel like I should be doing something. So there usually are little things if they want to get ahead.
Yeah.
Which is important to some people just depending on what they have in the coming months.
Well, and I think there's also this notion of that you need to start a year in advance because the whole year you're busy, but it's not. It's that there's the things that have to be done at 1 year and the things that have to be done at 9 months and the things, but it's not a full on year of work.
Mm-hmm. And we're seeing a lot of condensed timelines this year.
Mm-hmm.
People booked, I don't want to say late because there's nothing wrong with it, but
later than they had in
the previous years this year. I mean, right now booking's kind of funny because it's either really short or really long.
Mm-hmm. It's 2 years or 6 months.
Mm-hmm. But with an 18-month engagement, which we're seeing plenty of those, I mean, you've got some time. You're not working the whole time. There are breaks. There are big breaks.
Mm-hmm.
And with those, it's definitely okay, we're going to book your vendors. We're going to check in once a month until, we get down to it.
Yeah. It's nice to have that time.
Mm-hmm. Well, to enjoy being engaged.
Yes.
Being engaged is fun. It should be fun.
I mean, I wouldn't know. I was engaged for a minute.
I wouldn't. I mean, my wedding was just a different thing from the weddings I planned. I don't know how fun it was. It was also so long ago. How long ago did you get married?
15 years tomorrow.
Oh,
or Tuesday.
Your anniversary is this week?
It's
No, I didn't know that. Happy anniversary.
Thanks.
Mine was 17 years ago. So, I mean, it was a different world. I don't even know who I was back then.
Well, this was really fun.
So fun.
I feel like there's always more stuff we can dive into, but we'll pick it up another day.
Sounds great.
Hope you're having a good time.
Thanks for listening to the Bloomhouse Podcast. Check out the show notes at bloomhousenc.com and connect with us on Instagram at bloomhousenc. We'll see you next time.